Hello everyone and welcome to this week's behind the scenes devlog video, and this week I'm still just working through the final few updates that need to be made before Equilinox can be released, but there's really not too much left to do now. I'm down to the last few tasks on the to-do list, so hopefully it shouldn't be taking too much longer. So it's already Wednesday morning. The last couple of days of development weren't particularly eventful, but hopefully the rest of the week will be a bit more interesting and I'll have some more stuff to show you. So I'm going to get to work now and I'll show you what I'm up to later in the day. There was actually one interesting thing that I did yesterday that I thought I'd just show you quickly. So last week you might remember that I implemented a skybox for the night sky, but there were a couple of things that I wasn't totally happy with, a few issues that I was having. For example, it was kind of obvious that it was just a box because of the angle that you view the different sides of the box at, and also the horizon was no longer completely horizontal. And there are ways of getting around these problems, but I wanted to try out a different technique that a friend had suggested to me. And it turns out that this technique worked pretty well. It solved all the issues that I was having, it was really simple to implement, and it's also a little bit more efficient as well. So the technique's really simple. All I do is I render a single large quad in the distance and make sure that it always gets rendered in front of the camera, always facing the camera as well, like this. Then onto the quad I texture an image of the night sky, as you can see here. And then finally I scroll the texture horizontally depending on the camera's rotation. So as the camera rotates to the right, you can see that the texture scrolls to the left, and obviously vice versa as well. And this gives the illusion that the stars are all around. So it's a bit of a cheat, a bit of a shortcut, and in many situations this technique wouldn't work, but luckily for me, for what I need in Equilinox, this does the job pretty well. Next up today, I've been adding two more features to the new camera that I was implementing last week. The first is the ability for the camera to move to a certain location in the world. So for example, sometimes you get notifications that are about a certain entity, and clicking on that notification will take you to that entity. So I had to make it possible for the camera to be moved to a certain location on command. And secondly, I've now made it impossible for the camera to clip into the terrain, because previously it was very easy to get the camera to go under the terrain, but you can see that that is now no longer possible. This afternoon, just working on various little updates here and there, mostly really simple stuff, like in the main menu when you press the save button, it now gives you some feedback to tell you that the game has been saved. And also when you're genetically modifying a plant or animal to be a different colour, the colour choices now have the names of the colour next to them, which is important because sometimes the colour of an entity is a breeding requirement for unlocking a new species, so it's now a lot more obvious which colour you actually need to choose. 5:45 now, and I've just been paying a bit of attention to the splash screen, which is the screen that appears immediately after you start the application while the game is loading in the background. And unfortunately when I implemented this way back then, I didn't do a very good job. So the game actually has to load before the splash screen is shown, which means that while the game's loading, you're just looking at a completely blank screen. So I've just been in the code trying to separate the rendering of the splash screen from the loading of the game. And now when you launch the game, the splash screen is shown immediately, and then once it's shown, the game can start loading in the background. And obviously I still need to fill in the splash screen, but I'll have to do that tomorrow morning now, because this evening a couple of friends are coming over and we're going to try and make some sushi together. Just been doing a bit more work on the splash screen this morning, and I have now made it play a very simple animation when you start up the game while the game's loading in the background. And obviously I can change the logo or the images whenever I want, but in terms of the code, I think that's the splash screen now finished. 12:30 now, and I've just been fixing one final problem to do with the day-night cycle, which was that even after the sun had set, it was still visible, because obviously the world isn't infinite, so you can very easily see under it, and so even when it's nighttime, you can still see the sun under the world, which was a bit weird. So now what I've done is that after the sun sets, when it goes below the height of the terrain, it starts to fade out into the background. So at nighttime you can see that there's no sun to be seen anywhere. And then in the morning, the sun obviously fades back in so that it can rise as usual. So just going to stop for a bit of a break now, and I'm going to cycle into town to meet a friend for a quick lunch. So this afternoon I've got a rather tedious task to do, which is updating the language file for Equilinox. So basically all of the text for Equilinox comes from this file here, so that it can be easily translated, and then when you load the game it can decide which set of text to use, so basically which language the game's going to be in. Unfortunately, sometimes when I'm programming I'm a little bit lazy and I hard code some text into the code like I've done here for the biome names. So at the moment I'm just going through the code and taking out all of the hard-coded text and putting it into the language file so that it can eventually be translated. And to do that, I've just created this pretend language and just made all of the text a test value so that in the game I can use that language and very quickly see which text is coming from the language file and which text is just hard-coded somewhere. Last up today, just another rather boring thing that I've got to do. I'm just going through all of the in-game tasks and checking that their description text is up to date and that it's not too boring to read, and I'm just improving a few of them. This week a lot of the stuff that I've been doing isn't particularly exciting. I think I'm just getting so close to release now that the only tasks that are left to do are all the boring, tedious tasks that I've been putting off for ages, and I always thought I'll do them another day, and unfortunately that other day is now. So it hasn't been the most exciting week of developments, but it's all got to get done at some point. Anyway, I'm stopping for a bit of dinner now, and then I guess I'll try and get an early night. Good morning everyone, it is 7:30 on Friday morning. It's another beautiful sunny day today, which is lovely. And today the plan is mostly more boring tasks, unfortunately. I've got a few glitches to fix. I'm going to be doing a bit of work for the website later, and then this evening I'll probably be doing some editing. So far today I've just been finishing off a few random loose ends and bug fixes that need to be done, and I also did a bit more work on the language file, getting the text out of the code and into the file. I also fixed a bug to do with the drop down menu, so you can see that it was selecting an item that didn't actually exist. And finally I added a couple of hunting tasks into the game, such as this task here for the fox to catch some chickens, and I just had to do a bit of programming to make sure that the task gets notified whenever a fox carries out a successful hunt. To finish off the morning, I've just been trying to find a few more animal sound effects for the game. So in the jungle now you can hear the new frog sound effects. But I'm going to stop for a bit now. I really want to get outside, it's such a nice day today and I want to make the most of it. So I'm going to go on a quick bike ride down to the big park. This afternoon I'm doing a bit of work for the website, so the ThinMatrix website is getting closer to being finished and it's got a section for tutorials on it, so I'm just going through all of my tutorials, uploading them to the website and writing a bit about each one. So again, a bit of a long, tedious task, but it's all got to get done before the website can go live. So for the rest of the day now I'm just going to be getting started with the editing for this video, and I'll probably be doing that all evening. But before I get started, it's been a bit of a boring, dull afternoon, so I thought I'd treat myself a bit and do a bit of baking first. So that is pretty much going to be it for this week. Bit of a shorter one this time, but there wasn't really too much exciting stuff to show you. As I said, we're getting pretty close to release now, so it's really only the boring, tedious tasks left to do. And next week's actually the final week that I've got scheduled to do mostly programming. After that I'm going to be switching to doing more marketing, so we're getting pretty close now. But for this week, that's going to be it. So thank you guys very much for watching this video. Do subscribe if you haven't already. Have a fantastic week, and I will see you all next time.